They're going to come at each other with their guns blazing. Top roll with top roll. We're going to find out whose wrist is better, whose back pressure is better. Just staying up there, just like this, going, who's going to get it? Who's going to get it? Someone's going to fatigue. When both guys are going high and they're slightly dropped in the wrist and they're both looking for that, one of them is going to end up with their wrist going back.
Oh, this is where we get to get all the names wrong.
Pronunciation test.
Yeah, pronunciation.
Give us your best.
Irakli Zirakashvili versus Kydyrgaly Ongarbaev. I'm Australian. I can't do this. Kydyrgaly Ongarbaev, is that?
I think that's pretty good.
Pretty good.
Is it a Kydyrgaly or Kydyrgaly?
I've got.
You've got the name.
We've got to look it up.
Kydyrgaly Ongarbaev.
Ongarbaev.
And Irakli Zirakashvili.
Like it's just cruel. Kydyrgali. It's cruel to us. Western folk.
We got John Smith living next door, and
yeah. Joe Bloke down the street.
Anyway, pronunciations aside, this is a big match because it is a world title match.
It is a world title
105 kilo world title match. The best of Georgia, the best of Kazakhstan. At this weight, of course. Thrown down.
Yeah.
Good match. Yeah. How do you see it, Ethan?
How do I see it? I don't know how I see it. Irakli is looking insane right now in terms of just raw power and raw bicep strength. He's looking absolutely phenomenal.
And I have to say of Kydyrgaly, he doesn't look phenomenal. He's the most unsuspecting, mega strong human in arm wrestling. He doesn't look...
He looks
like the dominant strongman that he is. Like he looks. I'm not saying he looks bad, but he doesn't bulge out and bristle with.
He just looks like a fit bloke.
Yeah,
he just looks like a fit bloke, but he is insane.
When I went to Turkey the first time, my wife came, and it was when John was facing Kydyrgaly, and my wife asked me, "Who's the guy facing John?" I said, "The guy over there." She went, what? Really? That guy's facing, she's like, no way, John's going to win. It's so easy. I'm like, oh, trust me, yeah. Wait till you see what that guy can do. I said, that guy gave Levant trouble. It's like, what?
He's ridiculous.
So, Kydyrgaly looks like Ethan.
Yeah. Well, no, don't do him that dirty. He looks way better than me. But yeah, no, he's phenomenal.
Punches way above what he appears. He is the current world champion. He's beaten John and Michael Todd.
And he won both of those matches quite convincingly. Although John will say it was his own ego that lost him that match.
Yep. So very high table IQ.
Oh yeah, and that's the thing that gets question marks and it gets me all excited. It's almost a power VIQ match again.
So
I love those matches.
If you're allocating the points, the video game, it's between these two, Irakli and Ongarbaev. What's the distribution of strength versus IQ and all that sort of stuff, endurance?
That's the funny thing. It's just like Irakli is also a very intelligent arm wrestler. We saw his adjustments versus John Brzezinski. So it's kind of like Irakli is a 10 out of 10 in his weight class for strength and a 9 out of 10 with IQ. And Ongarbaev's kind of maybe 9.5. You know, they're both 9.5 and 10. There's just that slight difference. They're both insanely strong. And they've both got very good IQ, but Ongarbaev maybe a little bit more IQ, a little bit less strength than Irakli, and other way around for Irakli.
Yeah, I think that Ongarbaev is a little more willing to go to the other positions available within the sport. They're both top rollers, but I do think Irakli is more exclusively a top roller. However, we did see what he did against...
Game changer! The game changer! What makes this match so exciting? If we just saw the Irakli before the match with John... I'd be heavily in the camp of Ongarbaev. Before that match, heavily in the camp of Ongarbaev going, okay, he's just got his top roll. Irakli's got amazing defense, but that flop, and that was a brutal flop from Irakli.
The way Irakli won that final round...
Best round in history.
It stunned us, didn't it? We were literally speechless. We might actually play the clip.
It is the most... I'm gonna go out there and say the most insane round in the history of arm wrestling that I've ever seen.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous. It was ridiculous.
How he pulled,
it was incredible.
How he pulled that off
against John.
That's the thing. Like you see sometimes in arm wrestling, you see some amazing positions and some fight backs, and you go, "That was impressive." But then you go, "Like, it's in,
I know your opponent.
It's against. It's in the amateur league or it's in the low level pro or
Or
something
it's
like that,
against someone.
you're like, it's someone that you are stronger than. So
Yeah.
you can afford to go funky and still make a comeback. But for Irakli, it wasn't against nobody. It was against John, and John with full hand control, John.
Yeah.
And you think, oh, it's done. It's
Like,
done.
no one beats John from there. And then
And
Irakli
then-
beat John from there.
Yeah, and he almost like flop pressed John's flop press, and it was like from a defensive position. It was like, what? What?
It was...
The match went from either side of the table, back and forth. But anyway, what that points to is that Irakli has extreme elbow conditioning, and is willing to put it on the line, which, if he loses the battle for height against Ongarbaev, which we don't know. We don't know if he will or he won't.
If he does, I suspect it'll happen slowly.
He has that to go to.
What it means, and this is the big thing for me when I'm thinking about this match, is it means that Ongarbaev is not safe anywhere on the table. There is no place on the table where you're safe from Irakli.
One thing about John Brzenk that I think Ongarbaev won't have an issue with is John's historically got a bad shoulder, and I suspect nowadays a more difficult transition from a top roll to a press. You see, John very much jumps behind very quickly. It's not a grind. Get over here. I suspect that Ongarbaev, with a healthier shoulder, if he gets Irakli to there, will have the ability to maintain constant pressure and less need to jump behind and more just like get over here, squeeze you in, which I don't think Irakli would be able to find and fatigue the bicep.
I think Ongarbaev also has the ability to more viciously just hit with side pressure from anywhere as well to knock you out of position and get behind.
Because if we talk about endurance in the top roll, let's assume that Ongarbaev wins the high ground. Have a look at the endurance he displayed against Michael Todd. Michael Todd, of course, someone with a defense that takes a long time to go down. Irakli won 3-1, I believe it was that match. Sorry, not Ongarbaev. Ongarbaev won 3-1 in that match. Having lost the first round, he then actually looked like the man with way better endurance and technical execution on that. So I think that his ability, if he gets the high ground, I don't want to say it's impossible for Irakli, but I think it's harder for Irakli to do what he did to John to Ongarbaev.
I agree. I also think, though, that it's potentially harder for Ongarbaev to have gotten that high ground from centre. Now, we don't know where they're at against each other. Our only real reference we have is John. But where I've seen, I think where a lot of people see Irakli getting that high ground is on the defensive side, is working on the counter. Irakli has stronger bicep than anyone in his weight category.
Yeah,
so I'm curling 130
kilo curls.
Like, ridiculous. What?
We'll put that clip up too.
Yeah, and it doesn't look overly high effort for the 130 either. Which just is, it's ridiculous. So, him taking potentially centre and controlling back pressure from the start, and then Ongarbaev finding height on the defence. And then that leaves openings for Irakli, doesn't it? He's willing to jam
the press
forward.
opening. Yeah, is he willing to jam forward? That's a big question. Because again, I agree. Irakli, let's give him credit. Let's say he does have the best back pressure at centre. And case in point, look at how he did against Marcio Barboza. Crushed him. And we know the calibre of Marcio. So his centre table rising threat is massive. And he's looked fantastic in all of his matches in that respect. So let's assume that he does get that. And I just say, because we've seen Ongarbaev, he's a master of the defensive top roll.
Oh, phenomenal.
He got
Ridiculous.
stops on Levan with that.
He beat Kydyrgaly. And I know that's a very different Kydyrgaly to what we have here.
I'm glad you brought up that. If Ongarbaev loses height, he doesn't die either.
No.
Look at the Kydyrgaly match.
Neither of them die anywhere on the table. They're always a threat. It's amazing.
This could end up in another flop v flop situation.
Yes. Where they both exhaust each other's top roll and then get a defensive hold that the other can't quite get through, surge, and then flop this could go anywhere.
Does this match
anywhere except a hook? Really.
I was about to ask. Does this match is there a situation where it goes to a hook?
I don't see
later rounds
Ongarbaev putting Irakli in a hook. I think Irakli is going to be flop wrist or top roll before he's going to let the match go on a hook.
Yeah, I think Ongarbaev would be better off in a hook. The that Kazakh reputation of pressing, and I think he's more conditioned inside, I suspect.
I would suspect that Kydyrgaly Ongarbaev.
Look at that pronunciation.
Look at that pronunciation. I probably mangled it horribly. But yeah, I would have a feeling that he would control the hook space. Likely not be able to pin in one surge, but control and be able to manipulate Irakli in that sphere. So if I'm Irakli, I'm avoiding the hook like the plague. So I don't really see the match going in there.
I agree. The most likely scenario is they're going to come at each other with their guns blazing. Top roll v top roll. We're going to find out whose wrist is better, whose back pressure is better. That battle in itself is super interesting because they're both at the very, very pointy end of that. And
that battle could last for 20 seconds before we find out.
Just staying up there, just like this, going, who's going to get it? Who's going to get it? Someone's going to fatigue. When both guys are going high and they're slightly dropped in the wrist and they're both looking for that, one of them is going to end up with their wrist going back.
Yeah, but before we see the wrist going back, I suspect we'll see one of them slowly giving. Well, we're more likely to see Ongarbaev giving up center than Irakli, just in stylistically. But just to maintain. So if Irakli is winning that back pressure slowly, we're going to see Ongarbaev adjust, and it's just the suspense on that first round is going to be one of the most exciting rounds.
Will the buckle make a difference?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So if Ongarbaev has the buckle side first,
I think Ongarbaev's better with the buckle than Irakli, potentially, depending on how they get the setup. Like stylistically, that high posting defensive top roll, if you set well with the buckle, doesn't feel too bad. It's more that driving and
when it's top roller v top roller and your buckle side, you tend to have the objective of keeping it above everything above the wrist.
Yep.
When you're non-buckle side, you want to get some arm involved. You're like, well, let's get some pressure just slightly below the wrist.
This is something that might confuse the audience here. Ryan and I in training recently much prefer to have the buckle in our own hand right now.
Yeah.
Last we did, I probably won 70% of the matches in training with the buckle in my hand, and you won pretty much 100% of yours.
Yeah, it plays an interesting factor, doesn't it? And I think that is a factor that will come into play in this match, because who is better with the buckle? Because that might be what determines the match. Because historically speaking, most top rollers perform better without the buckle. So even if you're going to lose your matches on the buckle side, who's going to put more bullets into their opponent and fatigue them and subsequently be in control come round 5? So who's going to perform better with the buckle, you reckon?
I suspect it's close, but I'm leaning towards Ongarbaev in terms of being able to execute an efficient stop. But they're both so similar. And I think they both have a really good avenue to put bullets into each other's hands, buckle side. I just see it more likely that Ongarbaev can win with the buckle in his hand.
Do you recall round 1, John Brzenk against Ongarbaev, how John dominated Ongarbaev?
Yes.
Yeah, he really dominated him.
Like crushed him.
He rose up, looked at him, stonewalled him, and then just turned his wrist flexion on and took everything away from him. What was the difference between round 1 and round 2? Why did it go from John dominating to suddenly a change where it was a balance that Ongarbaev won? What happened? All right, so we're looking at round number 1 now. Buckles on Ongarbaev.
Yep.
And dominance, back pressure dominance was established. Ongarbaev looks for a hook, doesn't happen, John. Easy day. Now let's go forward to round number 2. Much better start. So when he's not buckle side, he was far better, maintained the control of the height, allowed his pronation.
That is fascinating. Okay, so we see something really interesting here in that. I keep on going to say the wrong name. Ongarbaev.
It's on the screen, Ethan.
It is. It's right there in front of me. But Ongarbaev actually has some connection with his wrist in that strap and in the setup, but is entirely above John's hand. So it is all in the hand in that one. Whereas at the start it was...
That's strapmanship, isn't it?
Yeah.
And what you're describing there, as you said, he had solid purchase on the strap that's around his wrist, where John had no purchase on that. It was all above his wrist. Round 3, we need to go and have a look at how this played out.
And then round 2, I think.
When he's got buckle side again, because he didn't perform well buckle side Ongarbaev in round 1. Let's have a look now. I think it's a strength and endurance thing. John, you can see him sweating, major effort. It was just, John almost dragged a little rather than rose. You can see, if we go back and watch it again, watch John's elbow position. He doesn't stay forward and rise. He drags. And, you go, and it's that slight drag, I think, loses him height. And Ongarbaev stays at the front of the pad.
Oh,
and uses bicep.
You can see that after round two where John gets completely drawn out and fights from a horrible position for far too long, that all those essential strengths needed to take control of height.
And then round 4, you see John's posture. He's looking for more wrist flexion cup now. Looks to go forward into a hook and gets steamrolled by Ongarbaev.
So that's really round 2 mistake in the setup from John. Where that potentially could have looked relatively one-sided John's way without that strapmanship.
Yeah, it was the strapmanship in round 2 that really did it for him. So we see there that top roll v top roll, it does matter who's got the buckle.
Absolutely.
Like for Ongarbaev, even specifically, you can see he performed better without the buckle. It's going to be interesting. Who gets that draw, who starts with the buckle, has a harder day. They just do.
And what's very interesting from that match as well is what we see is that Irakli looked definitively stronger in those first couple of rounds than Ongarbaev did versus John. That it was technical brilliance from Ongarbaev that won him that match, and it was a lot of raw power. Irakli was able to match John on raw power and actually have similar fatigue throughout the match as well. So. So it is that strength versus IQ. Classic.
What's it? Ultimate prediction, where are you at? I think it's Ongarbaev's. I think he's a little bit too good at the adjustments.
A little bit too
Just
good
a
on
touch.
the counter.
He's touched too good. I think he's got a better defensive top roll than Irakli. I think Irakli is largely an offensive guy, even though he has that as we saw against John, the broken wrist, defense and desperation. He's willing. I think Ongarbaev is too clean in his ability to close down those positions, and his transitions to press will be to on point. I think we're going to see a triple defense from Ongarbaev, and I think it's going to be 3-1. Ongarbaev losing a round when he has the buckle.
Well, just for the sake of entertainment, I'm gonna go with a counter. I'm gonna go Irakli 3-2 or 3-1. But Irakli needs to stay in control. Irakli cannot afford to lose control of the match. Maybe one round he can get through on that raw power with his flop press. But every other round he has to be able to stay in control of the match, and he has to be able to be patient on that offensive side. If he gets put into a defensive position, then that's going to be tricky for him. But the additional back pressure of Irakli may be enough to disengage Ongarbaev.
But is it additional back pressure? Are you certain of that he's got more back pressure?
I'm pretty convinced at this. I'm happy to be proven wrong. I really am, and I'm a big fan of Ongarbaev.
There aren't any 130 kilo curls from Ongarbaev out there.
No,
but the system of Kazakhstan arm wrestling. It's hard to fault it.
It's hard to vote against Ongarbaev as well. But yeah, sake of conversation, I'm sure we'll get plenty in the comments.
Anyway, guys, let us know in the comment section how you think this one's going to go. It is coming up East West 7. Do not miss it. All right. See you guys.